Are you, too, upset with the stamina changes? Are you frustrated with the fact that some heroes have inadvertently been nerfed into the dirt which they arose from? Are you a Centurion or a Jormungandr main on self-deletion watch? If so, then this hero is for you. That's what I would like to say if I was a Ubisoft dev that actually listens to this community. On a side note, let me shout out all of you for enjoying my last ideas video. It's easily the most viewed video on my channel. At the time I was writing this script, it was sitting around 53 or 57 views, but that jumped up to 67 in just a few days. Like, holy shit, thank you so much. Also, let me use this opportunity to toss some coins to my fellow Witchers. Oh, Valley of Plenty. As I was saying, let me take a chance to shout out Sanida and Ferdai from the For Honor Amino. They've been doing what I do for a long time, and they probably do it even better than I do. Do drop by and show them your support, especially Ferdai, I don't know, since their hero concept art is quite exceptional. I will link their Reddit account in the description below. With that said, let me introduce you to the Samurai's secret weapon. Ladies, gents, and everyone in between, allow me to introduce you to Kaibutsu, or Monster, whichever you prefer. An assassin-type hero designed to be an actual nightmare, in similar vein to the Zenny-patented El Diablo or a 4-stack of Hitokiri primed and ready to swift shadow you into oblivion. Now, before I start, let me preface this by saying this one is based more on mythology instead of realism like Haramia was. Because look, if we can have a teleporting Sun Wukong lookalike, we can have a character that's based on more mystical sides of mythology. So, please cut me some slack, yeah? Anyway. As I mentioned earlier, Kaibutsu is not really based on one specific warrior type from Japanese history. They are, rather, based on a specific type of yurei or yokai, which are referred to as jikininki, or shokujinki, which ominously translates to flesh-eating ghost. You could think of them as something akin to the eastern cousin to the Europe-based ghouls and revenants. According to the lore, these creatures lurk about old temples, cemeteries, and abandoned ruins near human settlements, where they emerge at night to feast upon the remains of the dead, greedily devouring any remains they can find, but never feeling satiated and eternally hungry. They are said to have the power to mesmerize people and instill a primal fear in those who look upon them, yet they mostly avoid human beings, prefer to go about their grim deeds unseen. And strangely enough, they almost never do the killing themselves. But the fear part, that is the crux of what the Kaibutsu is meant to be. Unnerving to look at, frightening to fight, with savagery and lethality that doesn't really befit a samurai. As far as Kaibutsu's arsenal goes, I'd say they wield a ninjato held in a reverse grip. Think of it similar to how God the Crow from the Shinobi-Do game uses his own ninjato. On the other hand, quite literally, they are armed with a tekokagi, or claw blades, initially a harvesting tool for Japanese farmers, similar to the kunai and kusarigama. Harden and lengthen the claws, and you got a weapon that can be used to deadly effect in the right hands. As for the body armor, I imagine something moderately to lightly clothed, something similar to Aramusha or Kyoshin. They would also have a mask as a face cover, but not something as simple as a helm or a mask similar to Kyoshin's Shuten mask. I want them to be genuinely nauseating to look at, like something that would come out of Junji Ito's worst fever dreams. And now we get to the interesting bits. What makes Kaibutsu unique? His oppressive nature. You're going to struggle if you face any kind of monster. That's what Kaibutsu is, it's in their name. It's going to be tough, but doable. In addition, how can you fight when you can't move properly? As the first set of unique things, I propose something I like to call impair movement. Moves like Cut Tendon and Burning Phantom cause a debuff called impair movement. It's doable in both 1v1s and teamfight, and what it does is it prevents rolling. Try to roll regardless and you'll immediately trigger out of stamina status, or OOS for short. It's quite simple, really. No need for a roll catcher if they can't roll at all. Second, we have Terrorize. Should you manage to land a Dread Chase on an OOS enemy, you'll knock them down and gore them with your weapons, restoring their stamina in proportion to the bleed damage dealt by Terrorize. In essence, you are the clear-cut example of a stamina bully. You dictate how much stamina your enemy is allowed to have. Oh, excuse me, I bumped the microphone by accident. Lastly, we have Devious Harm. It matters not how much armor you have, a monster will tear through it and leave you a pile of rancid Twizzlers at the end of it. In Force, your attacks will ignore whatever shields the enemy may have and damage the health directly. In addition, Devious Harm modifies your light attacks, with light finishes causing bleeding on hit. And with that out of the way, let us now move on to the moveset, which is, dare I say it, way more fleshed out and comprehensive than that of Haramia. Starting off, we have Dread Chase, dodge forward heavy which may come from any direction, similar to Shaman or pre-work Aramusha, triggers Terrorize on out-of-stamina enemies. Cutting Shadows, a chain of 3 lights with the final dealing bleed damage. Pretty simple. Right and top side would use the Ninjato, with the left side utilizing the Tekokagi. Infectious Tenebrosity, a light-heavy light chain, with the finisher dealing bleed damage. Knife in the Dark, a heavy light chain, with the finisher dealing bleed damage. Scaldic Sword, a chain of 3 heavies, with the finisher heavies being unblockable. As far as animations go, I posit the top unblockable use a downward Ninjato stab, similar to the Dutiful Concision execution. Right side would be a lunging horizontal slash with the Ninjato, left side, similar to Shaman's unblockable left heavy finisher, would utilize a goring stab with a Tekokagi, before shoving them forward off the blades. Think of the Deceitful Concision, but much more savage in performance. Scaldic Shade, a light heavy chain, with the finisher being unblockable. No soft feints here. I'm not a big fan of that. Either you read it and parry it, or you don't. As simple as that. Shade the Illusion, a light heavy chain, with the finisher heavy being unblockable. Brandish Breaker, a little something the Kaibutsu shares with the Haramia. Input a zone as a finisher and launch a 2-pronged attack, similar to Haramia's highway robbery finisher. Cut Tendon. We briefly mentioned that in the beginning. Press backwards guard break and swipe at the enemy's legs with Ninjato, dealing minuscule damage, not unlike Gladiator's Fushina Ictus, and trigger the Impair Movement status for 5 seconds. Burning Phantom, a sideways dodge guard break. Again, minuscule damage, unblockable, and it triggers Impair Movement upon landing. Bloody Divot, a deflect light following up with a swift swipe performed from either the Ninjato or the Tekokagi, depending on the side. Deals bleed damage. And lastly, we have Grievous Laceration, a deflect heavy. Now, consider this something of a command grab. Follow up the deflect with a grab to the throat before stabbing the opponent, doing both bleed damage and impair movement. Granted, I know you lot dislike your reused movesets, but I'll play devil's advocate here and propose that the animation be the same chain and grab that Centurion had back when he was initially released. Just because. I like the animation. And finally, we come to the feats. And let me tell you, I went out of my way to create 2 sets of unique feats, which would determine your playstyle. Are you a menace that terrifies and crushes the opposition, or will you be a godsend for stamina bullies everywhere? The following are the unique feats you would have unlocked from the start. Bear in mind that the second ones to unlock are unique as well. In Tier 1, we have Envenom. Coat your blood in toxins and envenom your opposition. Now, you may be thinking, isn't this just sharpened blades in Tier 1? Well, yes, but actually no. What I propose for Envenom is for the quote-unquote poison to instead deal what I refer to as stamina bleed. Similar to the health bleed, a portion of your stamina bar will turn dark green and will steadily tick down over time. Healing or recovering from an out of stamina will cleanse the effect. As the box standard alternatives go, we got Stealth and Ki, Because, you know, everybody loves Ki. In Tier 2, we have Unnerving Presence. Successive hero kills will grant you a quote-unquote terror radius, with the enemies having reduced defense, depending on how many you've killed, whilst reaching the maximum at 4 kills. In layman's... my mouth is dry. In layman's terms, think of Hitokiri's Spirit Shroud, but instead of granting a boost to your defense, it lowers that of the enemy. Think of it as a Fear Itself or Doom banner that constantly follows you. Of course, nothing lasts forever. If Kaibutsu dies, tough luck. You have to start all over again. The box standard alternative would be short-tempered. In Tier 3, we have Killer Instinct. Upon killing a hero, all enemies are revealed on the map for you only, with a prompt not unlike the Shaolin's Blessed Projection. Upon making your choice, you will mark an enemy and reduce their defense by 15%. The effect lasts either until the marked victim or until Kaibutsu dies. The plain alternative, I'd go out on a limb and give him Fury. Because why not? As I said in my previous Haramiya video, if Shanhu and Hitokiri can have Shinobi's Nukekubi, I wouldn't mind giving Kaibutsu Fury. Besides, Nusha has Berserker as a Tier 4, let's be real. Lastly, in Tier 4, we have Mesometa Akumu, or Awakened Nightmare, whichever you prefer. This one is a doozy. In essence, you conjure a nightmare realm that offers several disadvantages for the opposition. The scenery changes, which is on itself purely aesthetic. However, the enemy team can't see the outlines of their teammates, their guard UI is disabled, and if they have captured zones, they will provide no healing as long as Mesometa Akumu is active. It lasts either 2 minutes on its own, or until Kaibutsu is killed. So what will you do? Do you increase your strength in numbers and weather out the storm? Or do you blindly chase after Kaibutsu in order to escape what may potentially be utter mayhem? The choice is yours. As an alternative, I'd propose Yamauba to grant at least some sustainability should they be overwhelmed. Now, going from Oppressor to the Holy Grail for stamina bullies, we have a second set of unique feats, revolving around assistance and stamina abuse. In Tier 2, we have Severe Wound, a passive that modifies your deflects. Taking stamina bleed to a whole new level, heavy deflects will bind your max stamina to your max HP at a time. The less health you have, the less stamina you have to work with. After all, one can't fight at full strength when they are 2 steps shy of dying. Any kind of health recovery... Any kind of health recovery will cleanse the effect, however. At Tier 3, we have Serpent Sting, something I consider a cousin to Longbow and Fire Arrow. What you do is loose an envenomed arrow, dealing moderate damage and limiting the enemy's stamina by 50% for 30 seconds. Now, should this ever come to fruition and you are facing a raider, just remember that it was me who pitched this. Doubly so if you're assisting a Jormungandr main. Lastly, at Tier 4, we have Territorial Imperative, which I would consider a Fear Itself on steroids. To put it in as simple as phrasing as possible, you conjure up a massive terror radius, I'd say about as large as Zone C on the Castlegate map. Enemies inside it don't have their defense reduced, but instead, their stamina slowly drains over time. In addition, simple sidestep dodges cost stamina as well. It lasts either 60 seconds on its own, or until Kaibutsu himself perishes. And, as YouTube's favorite boxman Solid Soul tends to say, you've made it. You've made it to the end. I know this was significantly longer than my Haramiya video, primarily because I wanted to go as much into detail as possible to make it more concise, more fleshed out, you could say. So, thank you for putting up with my forlorn voice throughout this video. You may not know it, but it genuinely helps. 1, you get at least some entertainment, And it gives me serotonin to know you actually enjoy the stuff I put out. So thanks again. You guys who support what I do make all this worthwhile. This has been Matt from Nova Kaiser Entertainment, and as always, take care, everybody.